Untitled Woman with a Purpose, the podcast where I dish to you the real raw truth as I and as we evolve, because staying the same is not an option. I'm your girl, SantaLí Nicole, and we're back at it again with another episode. On this episode, I'll be digging into the act of surrendering, and what follows with surrendering is the act of expectation, or the being of expecting. I really am going with the wind in this season. In this season right now, I'm learning to go with the wind. Like, I've learned other things along the journey, in my life, with all the hardships, the trials, the tribulations. I've learned, I've grown, I've evolved. But now it's about keeping all that knowledge and that wisdom that I've gained, and learning those lessons and not allowing those lessons to dictate whether I lost or won, because in the sight of the Father, as long as He has gone before me, everything in my future is secured and I've already won. So just keeping that flow and being free with the wind and surrendering and not allowing the anxiety or who I was to weigh me down. We don't stay the same. When you know something and you know it's better than what you knew before, you don't stay the same. It's impossible. If you are that type of person to force yourself to stay confined in that box of what you knew, neglecting what you know now, then it's really just detrimental to your health, and emotional, mental, physical, all types of health. So it's like allowing yourself to grow. Like, you might like it. It might be beautiful. It might be out of the box. Yes. Uncomfortable. Yes. Scary sometimes, but it's never going to not feel good. Yeah, we're going with the wind now. Okay. So stay with me because it can get pretty crazy. But it's beautiful. It's freeing. It's something I will not regret ever doing. You can't regret letting go. You can't regret peace. I would never regret peace. It's just something about peace that fills you in all the right places, that something about the world just can't. I know that everything I need in this moment, the Father knows I need it. He has prepared me for it, and He's gone ahead and prepared it for me. With all that in mind, I'm working on just being all the things I've learned that I need to be in this moment. That's every moment of my life, whether I'm alone or whether I'm with a group of people. It's being that same person and never changing. And I've always been that type of girl, like to be the same person, whether I was alone or with my friends or with people I didn't know. I always was the same character. I always had the same mentality. I just now have grown and I've matured in certain areas. So now it's bringing that with me. It's bringing that knowledge into that season and into those places, and not being afraid or embarrassed that I'm repping Jesus, because following Jesus was not about a trend. It was not about jumping on the bandwagon of, oh, these group of people are loving Jesus, so let me love Jesus and let me figure out why I love Jesus. God chose me when I didn't want to be chosen. I ran from God for so long that He snatched me from the fire that I kept running to and putting myself into. He snatched me from that fire, which means He chose me. And that means that there's something in me that He needs done in this world, and He's going to use me to do that. So following Jesus is not a trend for me. I don't care about who's around. I don't care what is going on. If I know my God and I know what He can do and who He is, and I'm standing on that as a stable foundation, He's going to be with me wherever I go, with any person in any season, around any group of people. I'm not going to be embarrassed anymore about who I'm repping. I'm following Him because it's my life, because He's created my life and He has a purpose on my life that I can't keep running from anymore. I can't keep avoiding, or I can't be anxious about either. I have so much weight of the thought that there's something bigger for me than what I've done already. And it's not a bad thing. But because I I wasn't grown in it, because I wasn't matured in it, because I wasn't knowledgeable about the beauty in it. I ran from it. But now that I'm running towards him is making that picture clearer. It's making that idea bigger. It's making my heart grow, and making more room for new things and new ideas that he's continuing to feed me. With all the time that I've lived in the world and all of the things that it's filled me with, whether that be bad relationships, poor career choices, or just poor choices in general, anytime I focus on him, those things become silenced. Those behaviors, those habits, those mentalities, they get silenced, and he makes them clearer. He makes the right ones bigger and more profound in my mind. So I'm focusing on them more than the bad. So through the waiting period, it was really hard understanding God's timing, because a lot of us think that when we pray for something that it should automatically just happen like magic. But a day to us is really 1,000 years to him. 1,000 years to him is a day to us. It's in the Bible. And with that knowledge, you understand that basically means God doesn't work on your time. God doesn't work on a clock. He's timeless. He's out of time. Though he created it, he's out of it. Building your courage, the mentality, and the boldness and courageousness in what he's already promised. So that way you are already in that mindset and in that mode of what you're expecting when it happens. And you can just go with the flow, go with the wind on it. Before I gave my life to Christ, so this is BC Santa. This is before Christ, SantaLí. BC Santa's life looked like chaos. I was making decisions off the rim. I was just like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Not really thinking the whole thing through, not really processing the consequences of my decisions or how it would affect others. I grew up in a chaotic lifestyle growing up as a child to like my teenage years. I was used to that chaos. I was used to the chaotic thoughts. I was used to just my household being chaotic, my relationships being chaotic, my mind being chaotic. Being in that fire was something that I was familiar with. It was something that I was comfortable in. Little did I know that I was running to a fire that was actually burning me, that was actually making my life worse, that was actually leading me to death. He gave me a sense of life that I did not know before, and made me look at how I was living to see that I was actually killing myself. When I approached chaos in the decisions that I made on my own as an adult, I was comfortable in it and didn't really see anything wrong in it. So I just felt like, oh, okay, this is normal for me. Not surrendering also looked like dealing with that as well as indecisiveness. So, yes, I was able to make decisions, but sometimes as my mental state progressively got worse, even the easiest decision was the hardest decision to make, because I was so, like, it was so chaotic in my mind that I just was like, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And sometimes that can affect a lot of relationships, as I've learned. That can affect my professional career, that can affect a lot of things. Trying to be everything for everyone and not being able to be everything for myself, which is just being overwhelmed and overworked at the end of the day. As you try to continue to be everything for everyone, you notice that sometimes you fall short. And then as you continue to learn that you make mistakes, sometimes it'll play on you as, okay, you're an imperfect person, like you're a really bad person, you're really not who you thought you were to this person. And they start to see it as they don't really love me, when in all actuality, I've given you everything. I've given you all that I can give you. I didn't realize that my actions could really hurt you, or that my decisions to even the smallest of things could affect you in this way. That being overworked, that being overwhelmed with life and how it's lifing, that shows what you're not surrendering, or it can actually review what you need to surrender. So I was not surrendering a lot of things because I thought that I could just do it. Like I said in my last episode, it was about that independency that we think we need to have. And as women, especially, I see this the most. We think that we have to be independent because men ain't, but not all men aren't. There are still some good ones out there. As far as being independent because of that is the wrong reason to be independent. You should be independent because that's who you are as a person. You like to handle things on your own, but you're willing when the opportunity presents itself, or the man that is right for you presents himself, that you're willing to surrender, that you're willing to submit, because you see that he's got his head on right and you got your head on right. So it works that you're able to put yourself in that place where you can rest, where you're able to fall back and allow the man to be a man and you be the woman, the supporter. It says in Genesis that God created Eve from Adam, right? Because he got her from his rib. And when he awoke, he knew that that was Eve. He knew that that was his wife, because there was something in him that was missing. She was created to be his helper. As women, we're just top tier. I mean, if you deny that, then you're a hater. But like, that's what we're created to do. We're created to add on. We're created to create life and continue this cycle of life. As a woman, it's good to be independent, but when you're independent because it's connected to trauma, then that's the wrong reason to be independent. You're not able to be that soft feminine. You're always that alpha female. And being that alpha female is not a bad thing. But if you're not balanced between the alpha female and the soft feminine, that's how you know you're stemming this independency from trauma. And that's where I was in that place in my life. I was being independent because of trauma. I was being independent because my dad abandoned me. I was being independent because my mother taught me to be independent, because there was no one in our family or in our lives that we could depend on, because she never had that role model, right? It was chaos for me when I was trying to be everything and do everything. And that's another thing that surrendering is not, is trying to be everything and do everything for everyone and then not being able to be everything for yourself, right? It leads to being overworked, it leads to being overwhelmed. And I don't know about y'all, but I got to a point where being overworked and overwhelmed was killing my body to the point where all of the decisions and how I was choosing to act in my life were affecting other people. And at some point, I was awoken to the fact that it wasn't someone that I needed. It was God that I needed. It was God that I needed to surrender to. It was God that I needed to lean on. He was the one that I was truly searching for, and I didn't know to lean on and to surrender to. I was expecting broken people to carry my broken pieces. What I'm learning surrendering is looking like is allowing things to flow, allowing things to be just as they are supposed to be, and not forcing anything. So that means whoever's for me is for me, whoever's against me is against me. Also, not expecting those who aren't for me to be for me, or forcing them in any way, shape, or form to be for me. I understand that some people, are friends for so long, they love one another or their family, so the expectancy of them to support you and to be there for you is relevant and present. This is what he taught me. Not everyone that is with you in this time or in your past seasons will be able to go with you to your purpose place, the place that he has for you. He doesn't intend for everyone to fit through those doors with you. He's the God that whatever door he closes, no man can open, and whatever door he opens, no man can close. Those are usually the people that are in your life to test whether you are allowing things to flow. And also, not everyone is willing to surrender their life to Christ. Not everyone is willing to follow God. Not everyone is willing to follow Jesus. They're so used to the way they live their lives in the world, and they're so comfortable being in the world that they don't understand, and they don't really care to understand about what's bigger than them. That's nothing against them. I have nothing against those people. I have nothing against those who choose that for themselves. I just understand that, and I also understand that I have something in my life that I have to do because it's not for me, it's for God. So understanding that and understanding them, I understand that there's a middle ground, that I can still love you, but I still need to choose what God is leading me to do over our relationship or over our whatever it is. It's something bigger than what I play in your life and what you play in my life. The woman that I am today is the foundation in which a lot of the things that are going to happen in my life will stem from. If he wouldn't have snatched me from that fire, I wouldn't have known that what I was doing or who I was being was not suitable for the future, that I was living way below the standard of what he created me to be. I'm rested in the promise that I don't have to force anything. Everything that is necessary for the purpose God has placed in me will work naturally for me. It will flow naturally. Anything that doesn't is obvious sign that it was not from God and that I'm starting to force things, which I then will revert back to focusing on surrendering and whatever it is that I was forcing, looking at it as, okay, what am I forcing it for? Why am I forcing it? And trying to go back to surrendering it to God, because if you give it to God, it one will not only work out perfectly, but two, it will relieve you of that weight of, okay, I need to do this, this, and this for this. Or if I don't if I don't make this happen, then this is gonna happen. And like I said before, you can't force everything. Everything is not in your control. Only the things that come within you, from within you, and the things that are on you, you can control. You also understand, as Philippians 4:13 reminds us, that I can endure all these things in the power of the one who gives me strength. I got to a point in my life where I was neglecting to take responsibility and accountability for those decisions and those actions because, well, I was blaming it on the fact that I was tired, or I was blaming it on the fact that I didn't have this, or I didn't have that, or my father was not in my life, or my mother was abusive. I was blaming it on all that had happened to me, except in taking responsibility for it. Another thing also was people would tell me, "You're so strong. You're so strong. You can handle this. You got this. You got through this. You can get through this." I know I'm strong. I know I got through that and I can get through this. It's not a matter of if I can or if I can't. Us as women, when we're being too strong too much, we tell ourselves, I don't want to be strong. Because then that keeps people from treating us like we're women. Like we don't have this soft feminine that we also have to balance with this alpha female. I know I'm strong. I never said I wasn't strong. And I never said that I wasn't going to be able to get through whatever it is that's before me or ahead of me. That's not the problem. Yeah, I can be hard. I can I can toughen up when necessary, but I shouldn't have to all the time, right? And that's where that healthy independency grows from um, surrendering, because then you learn that who you are as a woman should not negate who you let into your life, and who you do let into your life will determine how you express yourself, how you allow yourself to be as a woman, and learning that you can still balance the alpha female with the soft feminine. You don't have to be out of balance. Out of balance causes problems. Learning where your independency stems from is the first step to surrendering. So many times we see people in the world who aren't confessing that Jesus is their Lord and Savior, or believing it in their hearts that Jesus is God, and they're still succeeding. They're still out here, elevating and growing and bringing success into their life. The devil can bless you too. Whether you're selling your soul for it or he's going to just rip it from you, there's always something with him that he's going to take it away at some point, in some way, shape, or form. So if you're going through God, you don't have to worry about having anxiety. You don't have to worry about being depressed, that you're underworked or overworked or overwhelmed, right? When you're working through God, all of the things that you need, whether it's to fulfill your purpose or just on a day to day, whether you need food, drinks, shelter, He's going to provide that onto you because you're seeking Him first, right? You're seeking His kingdom first, His righteousness, and He's going to provide all the things that you need because He knows that you're focused on Him. Last night in Bible study, the pastor had us read Matthew 14, and he had us read verses 13 through 21. Those verses really are when Jesus was speaking to the 5,000, and he finished speaking. They were hungry. He told the disciples to go get them some food. Now, the disciples thought that we only have $200 or 200 denarii. How are we supposed to buy enough food for 5,000 people? Little did they know, there was a little boy who thought he had nothing, right? He had 5 loaves and 2 fish. Little did he know that that would soon be multiplied, because what God was teaching us in those verses is that no matter how little of anything you have, whether it's your time, whether it's your money, whether it's your hobbies or your gifts and talents, whatever it is that you're giving, right? If you're giving it with a cheerful heart and you're seeking him first and you're giving it to him with the posture of, I want to give it because it's the right thing to do and not because of what I could gain from it, as the little boy did. He didn't know that that food was going to be enough to feed the 5,000, and he gave it with a generosity and a cheerful heart of, here you go, here's my nothing. And then God, in the end, made it into something. Because it tells us later in the verses that he made 5 loaves and 2 fish into enough to have leftover pieces, 12 leftover baskets of food from 5 loaves and 2 fish. So it doesn't matter how little time you have, it doesn't matter how little money you have, or little, knowledge in that gifts or in those hobbies and those talents and gifts, or and those talents or gifts that you have. He can make something from that nothing, as long as you're willing to give it to him first, seek his righteousness, and give it with a cheerful heart. Because in surrendering, you know that you're not going to be able to control everything, right? But what you can control is your heart in that time, right? In that period, in that waiting period, or even in that time where you have to just relinquish all control. But God was going to give you back all of that you have given. He's going to give you back all of the little that you thought. And because he's an abundant God, and because he's a powerful God, and he's infinite, he's not just going to give you back what you gave. He's going to give you back what you gave in abundance, as long as you seek him, because he's going to give it to you in knowledge. He's going to give it to you in wisdom, and all of the materialistic things that in the world that you need to fulfill that purpose that he has for you is going to come with it, as long as you're willing to give it. Because in order to receive, you have to give first. It's the reciprocity that comes with giving. Understanding that if you're surrendering yourself and you're submitting to God, and as you would to your husband, that he's going to give to you what he knows you need, right? Because we as people, we only see the outward. In understanding that the more I give to God, the more I surrender to God, he knows my heart. He knows the intentions in my heart that I have in giving, because he reads the heart. He doesn't read the outward appearance. He doesn't read me just giving that food to the homeless person, but he reads that I genuinely think that they need this food, that they deserve a meal. And how do I not know that God is trying to answer one of their prayers through me? Being obedient to that discernment, being obedient to that calling, being obedient to that whisper. Because God is that, I've learned that God is that whisper in the chaos that I was used to. Because sometimes the chaos is still there. Sometimes the thoughts overcrowd my mind and they're screaming, and sometimes the heartbeat of my anxious thoughts lead to just everything being so loud inside me. But then you'll hear that whisper that's telling me to do this one thing. It sounds encouraging. It sounds calm. It feels loving and gentle, and it's leaving me feeling guided and not condemned or anxious or afraid of what is going to come. Walking in that and being in that leads to understanding that as long as I'm giving with my heart, and I'm giving to God, and I'm giving all that I have, I'll never be led wrong. I'll never be led anywhere that he hasn't meant for me to go. So if I could leave you with any piece of advice today, it would be to not stress. Try not to stress, because I know it's easier said than done. I know, trust me. And the fact that I just said that, like, it's so easy to do, because I still struggle with it. But it's as easy as you want it to be, because you know that God is going to provide for you. And if you don't, you know the chapter, you know the verses, because that book never lies. That's the book of life. That's the book of truth. So as long as it comes from there, you know you can depend on it. like it's your spine, right? You don't think that, you don't think, okay, I need to stand up straight, and then you stand up straight. No, you just automatically stand up straight. It's a firm foundation. It's something that never changes. I mean, we've only lived our lives for however many years you may be have lived on this earth, right? That word's been living longer than anybody in anything. It may have been translated over the years. There's truth in it. That's why it's important that you have a relationship with Jesus. Then you start to know him for yourself. Meditating on the word, you start to allow him, you create that space in meditating for him to speak to you the way that you are receptive to hear it. Not everybody listens the same way. Not everybody hears the same thing. Not only do we all have different tongues, which is we all speak different languages, but we also understand differently, which is why it's important that you know him for yourself and not just going off of whatever I talk about in these episodes, because this is how God has spoke into me. This is how God has revealed himself to me. But I'm just an example. I'm just a testimony of whatever I've gone through, that he will still speak to you, that he still wants to hear from you. It doesn't matter how nitty gritty you've gotten in sin or how nitty gritty in sin you are now. He wants to speak to you. In the same way that you are just so dependent on your bones working, on your muscles retracting, and on anything in your body just reacting to whatever it is in life that you needed to react to, it's the same way you should be dependent on the one who created them, on the one who knit you together, on the one who gave you life in your lungs, who gives his breath in your lungs. Allow yourself to receive him. Thank y'all for tuning in to this episode of Godly Woman with a Purpose. I'll catch y'all next time on my next upload. Don't forget that I love you, but God loves you way more. All right, love y'all. Bye.